If you are a man with a mind that cuts too fast, you've probably felt it already. The silence after you speak, the subtle recoil in people's eyes, the way conversations die the moment you refuse to play dumb. You don't say it out loud, but you feel it in your bones. The smarter you became, the fewer people stayed, and at some point, you stopped calling it coincidence. You started to wonder if intelligence itself is the crime, not because you're arrogant, not because you look down on others, but because your very way of seeing the world disrupts the invisible contracts that keep most social bonds alive. Here's the uncomfortable truth. No one tells you high intelligence does not isolate you by accident. It isolates you by design. And long before modern psychology tried to soften this reality with words like giftedness or overthinking, one man understood it with brutal clarity, not in terms of IQ scores or personality tests, but in terms of power, perception, and survival. Machiavelli never wrote about friendship the way self-help books do. He wrote about human nature as it actually behaves when masks fall off, and when you apply his logic to the modern, intelligent man, something disturbing becomes obvious. The absence of friends is not a failure, it is a consequence. Most people believe friendship is built on honesty, similarity, and goodwill. That belief itself is the first illusion. Machiavelli would dismantle. People do not bond over truth. They bond over shared illusions. They do not seek clarity. They seek comfort. They do not want to see the world as it is. They want reinforcement for how they already feel. And this is where the intelligent man becomes dangerous without ever intending to be, because his mind does not stop where others instinctively stop. He sees patterns behind emotions, motives behind words, power games behind kindness. And even when he stays silent, people sense it. They feel observed, not in a paranoid way, but in a subtle animal way, as if something about him refuses to participate in the collective lie. Machiavelli understood that most human relationships are not moral arrangements. They are strategic ones. People align with those who make them, feel safe, validated, and superior. Friendship in this sense is a mutual agreement to not threaten each other's worldview. The moment you do, intentionally or not, you become a liability. A man with a high IQ doesn't need to dominate conversations or correct others to break this agreement. His presence alone can do it. He asks questions that go one layer too deep. He notices contradictions others rely on to stay emotionally stable. He hesitates where others follow blindly. And to the group, hesitation looks like disloyalty. This is why intelligent men often experience social rejection not as open hostility, but as gradual disappearance. Invitations slow down, messages go unanswered, inside jokes no longer include them. There is no dramatic conflict because the group doesn't see him as an enemy. They see him as a disturbance. And Machiavelli would say, this is predictable. People do not eliminate what they fear openly. They simply remove it from proximity. Silence is safer than confrontation. Another illusion collapses here. The idea that intelligence makes you more relatable. In reality, it often makes you less legible. High IQ men tend to think in abstractions, long-term consequences, and probabilistic outcomes. Most social interaction, however, operates on emotional immediacy. People speak to feel, not to understand. They share stories to bond, not to analyze. When an intelligent man responds with nuance instead of validation, it feels cold, even if it's accurate. When he refuses to exaggerate outrage or enthusiasm, it feels like distance. Machiavelli would recognize this instantly. He knew that appearing virtuous often mattered more than being virtuous. In modern terms, appearing emotionally aligned matters more than being intellectually honest. This creates a cruel paradox. The intelligent man is often capable of deeper loyalty, more thoughtful friendship, and greater understanding than most. But the conditions required for those qualities to flourish are rare. They demand mutual awareness, mutual honesty, mutual tolerance for discomfort. And most people are not built for that. They are built for stability, for repetition, for emotional equilibrium. So when faced with someone who disrupts that equilibrium simply by existing, they unconsciously retreat. There is another layer Machiavelli would not ignore: power. Intelligence is power. Even when it's unspoken, it threatens hierarchies. In any group, there is an unspoken order who leads conversations, whose opinions carry weight, who sets the emotional tone. A highly intelligent man destabilizes this order without trying. He might not seek leadership, but others sense he could take it. He might not assert dominance, but others sense he sees through dominance. This creates unease. Machiavelli warned rulers about men like this not because they were evil, but because they were unpredictable, and unpredictability is the enemy of social comfort. So what happens? The group compensates. They label him as quiet, intense, aloof, or hard to read. Labels are social tools. They simplify complexity so it can be dismissed. Once labeled, he becomes easier to exclude without guilt. After all, he's just not that social. The intelligent man often accepts this explanation himself, not realizing it is a defense mechanism, not a diagnosis. There is also the burden of foresight. High IQ men often see consequences before actions. They sense where trends lead. They recognize patterns of self-destruction in others early. This makes casual bonding difficult. It's hard to laugh freely when you can already see the cost, hard to fully engage when you know how the story ends. Machiavelli would argue that this awareness, while valuable, is isolating because it separates you from the present moment most people live in. They are playing today's game. You are already thinking 3 moves ahead. That gap becomes distance. And then there is honesty, not moral honesty, but perceptual honesty, the refusal to pretend. Most friendships rely on a certain level of mutual deception, exaggerated praise, selective silence, polite ignorance. The intelligent man often struggles with this, not because he lacks social skills, but because his mind rejects inefficiency. Lying feels inefficient. Pretending feels heavy. So he speaks plainly or not at all. Machiavelli knew that plain truth is rarely rewarded in social life. It is tolerated only when it serves power. Otherwise, it is punished quietly. This is why many intelligent men report the same experience across cultures and eras. Loneliness not as sadness, but as clarity. Not feeling misunderstood, but feeling seen too much or not at all. They don't crave crowds. They crave resonance, and resonance is rare. Machiavelli would not tell such a man to chase friendship blindly. He would tell him to understand the terrain, to recognize that most alliances are temporary, conditional, and based on utility, that expecting unconditional camaraderie from a world built on perception is a mistake. But here's the part most people miss. Machiavelli did not advocate isolation for its own sake. He advocated awareness. The intelligent man without friends is not broken. He is unarmored. He sees too clearly to blend in effortlessly, but not clearly enough to weaponize that vision. Yet his loneliness is not the end state. It is the threshold, a signal that he has outgrown unconscious belonging, but has not yet mastered conscious connection. And this is where the story truly begins. Because once a man understands that his isolation is structural rather than personal, something shifts. He stops begging for inclusion. He stops shrinking his mind to fit rooms it was never meant to inhabit. He begins to ask a far more dangerous question, not what is wrong with him, but what kind of alliances are actually worth forming in a world where most friendships are built on comfort rather than truth. But once a man reaches that question, he crosses an invisible line. From the outside, nothing changes. He still walks alone, still spends long stretches without messages lighting up his phone, still exists on the margins of social life, but internally, the framework collapses and rebuilds. He no longer interprets solitude as rejection. He begins to recognize it as a filtering mechanism. Machiavelli would argue that every system removes what does not conform, not out of malice, but out of self-preservation. And society is no different. The intelligent man is filtered out because he cannot fully submit to the emotional economy that keeps most relationships stable. At this stage, many men make a critical mistake. They assume that because most people cannot meet them at their level, no one ever will. That assumption hardens into arrogance or despair. Both are traps. Machiavelli warned against extremes of self-perception. Overestimating your uniqueness blinds you just as much as underestimating your value. The truth is, colder and more precise. High intelligence does not make you superior. It makes you incompatible with the default settings of social life. Default settings reward agreement over accuracy, loyalty over insight, emotional mirroring over independent thought. When you opt out of these, consciously or not, you lose access to casual bonds. And casual bonds make up the majority of friendships people call meaningful. The intelligent man wants depth, but depth is expensive. It requires time, vulnerability, and mutual courage. Most people don't refuse depth because they are shallow. They refuse it because depth destabilizes the identities they've spent years constructing. Machiavelli understood identity as a mask worn for survival. People do not cling to beliefs because they are true. They cling to them because they are useful. They explain past choices. They justify current behavior. They protect self-image. When an intelligent man questions these beliefs even gently, he threatens the mask. And when the mask feels threatened, the person wearing it feels threatened. Friendship dissolves, not because of disagreement, but because of exposure. This explains a pattern many high IQ men notice but struggle to articulate. People enjoy them at first. Conversations are engaging and ideas flow. There is curiosity, but over time, something shifts. The novelty turns into tension. The same qualities that once made the intelligent man interesting now make him exhausting, not because he changed, but because sustained exposure removes the buffer of novelty. The group realizes that his way of thinking is not a phase. It is a permanent lens, and living next to that lens feels like living next to a mirror that never turns off. Machiavelli would say that people tolerate truth only when it flatters them or serves their goals. Otherwise, they prefer illusion. This is why high IQ men often find that the people who stay closest to them are not the ones who talk the most, but the ones who need something specific: advice, strategy, perspective. The relationship becomes transactional, even if unspoken. The moment the utility fades, so does the bond. This realization can feel brutal, but it is also liberating. It strips away sentimentality and replaces it with clarity. Clarity, however, brings another danger: cynicism. When an intelligent man recognizes how conditional most friendships are, he may withdraw entirely. He may decide that connection is not worth the cost. Machiavelli would caution against this. Withdrawal is not power. Selectivity is. There is a difference between isolating yourself out of bitterness and conserving your energy for alliances that matter. The intelligent man must learn this distinction or risk becoming exactly what society already suspects him of: being detached, cold, unreachable. Here is where Machiavelli's thinking becomes unexpectedly practical. He believed that understanding human nature allowed you to navigate it, not escape it. The intelligent man's problem is not that he has no friends. It is that he expects friends to operate outside human nature. He expects honesty without consequence, depth without discomfort, loyalty without incentive. These expectations are noble but unrealistic. Machiavelli would advise adjustment, not surrender. Adjustment does not mean pretending to be less intelligent. It means understanding when intelligence should speak and when it should observe. Power, in Machiavelli's world, belonged to those who knew when to reveal themselves and when to remain opaque. The intelligent man often fails here. He reveals much too soon. He exposes his mind fully in environments that reward conformity. This accelerates his isolation, not because people hate him, but because they don't know where to place him. Most social groups rely on predictability. Roles are assigned quickly and unconsciously. The joker, the leader, the listener, the follower. High IQ men resist roles instinctively. Their minds refuse to shrink into fixed functions. But Machiavelli would argue that refusing roles does not make you free. It makes you undefined, and undefined elements in a system are often removed. So the intelligent man faces a choice not between authenticity and connection, but between unconscious authenticity and strategic authenticity. One is raw and unfiltered. The other is deliberate. Machiavelli would not call this manipulation. He would call it wisdom, knowing how much of yourself to reveal, and to whom is not dishonesty. It is self-preservation. This is especially important because not all loneliness is the same. There is the loneliness of exclusion, and there is the loneliness of transition. The first feels humiliating. The second feels disorienting. High IQ men often experience the second, but misinterpret it as the first. They believe they are being rejected when in reality, they are between social ecosystems. They no longer fit into mass culture, but they have not yet built or found a niche where depth is currency rather than liability. Machiavelli understood niches in terms of courts, councils, and inner circles. Power never belonged to the masses. It belonged to small groups bound by mutual interest and shared understanding. The intelligent man who seeks friendship in the crowd will always fail, not because he is flawed, but because the crowd is not designed for him. His peers are rare, and rarity demands patience. This patience, however, feels unnatural in a world obsessed with constant connection. Silence is interpreted as failure, solitude as weakness. But Machiavelli would flip this interpretation. He would argue that constant social engagement is often a sign of dependence. The inability to be alone reveals fragility, not strength. The intelligent man's solitude, while painful, is also proof of independence. He does not need constant validation to exist. Yet, independence should not harden into isolation. The danger is subtle. Over time, the intelligent man may begin to view others purely as predictable mechanisms. He may reduce people to patterns and probabilities. While often accurate, this perspective can erode empathy. Machiavelli warned rulers about this as well. Seeing people clearly does not mean seeing them without humanity. Power without empathy leads to miscalculation, and miscalculation leads to downfall. True mastery lies in balance. The intelligent man must learn to navigate shallow waters without drowning in them, while still reserving his depth for those capable of meeting it. This requires restraint, something intelligence alone does not guarantee. In fact, intelligence often undermines restraint because it creates the illusion of control. You think because you see more, you can move freely. But social reality is not moved by insight alone. It is moved by timing, perception, and emotional leverage. Machiavelli would tell the intelligent man, this, your mind is a weapon, but a weapon drawn at the wrong time invites attack. Friendship is not a battlefield, but it follows similar dynamics. Reveal strength too openly and others feel threatened. Conceal it completely and you become invisible. The art lies in controlled revelation, letting others discover your depth gradually rather than confronting them with it all at once. When high IQ men finally internalize this, something unexpected happens. They stop chasing friendship as a goal. They focus on purpose, mastery, and direction. And paradoxically, this is when alignment begins to occur, not in crowds, not in constant socializing, but in moments of shared work, shared struggle, shared creation. Machiavelli believed that bonds forged through necessity were stronger than those forged through sentiment. Modern psychology confirms this, but Machiavelli understood it centuries earlier. The intelligent man's future connections will not look like conventional friendships. They will be fewer, quieter, more intense. They will not require constant contact. They will survive silence. They will tolerate disagreement. They will not demand performance. But reaching this stage requires enduring the void without numbing it, without blaming others, and without betraying yourself. It requires understanding that loneliness is not always a signal to change who you are, but sometimes a signal that you are being reshaped for a different level of interaction. And once you see that, once you truly accept that your lack of friends is not a flaw, but a phase dictated by awareness, the question shifts again. It is no longer why you have no friends. It becomes what kind of man you are, becoming in the absence of them, and whether you are strong enough to let that transformation finish without running back to comfort just to escape the silence. The silence is where most men turn back, not because it hurts too much, but because it strips away excuses. When there is no noise, no social distraction, no one to perform, for a man is forced to confront what remains. Machiavelli understood this confrontation better than most. He knew that isolation reveals character faster than conflict. In the absence of constant reinforcement, a man either refines himself or decays. There is no middle ground. And this is why the intelligent man's loneliness is so dangerous and so powerful at the same time. Most men are social not because they love people, but because they fear themselves. They fear their thoughts when unfiltered. They fear the questions that arise when no one is there to distract them. High IQ men do not escape this fear. They simply encounter it sooner. Their minds are already loud, already restless, and already analytical. When friends disappear, the mind does not quiet down. It sharpens, and that sharpening can cut in two directions. One direction leads to resentment. The man begins to see the world as shallow, people as inferior, relationships as pointless. He mistakes pattern, recognition for wisdom, and detachment for superiority. Machiavelli would see this as a fatal error. Contempt weakens judgment. It blinds you to opportunity. A man who despises others cannot influence them, and influence is power. Intelligence without influence is isolation hardened into irrelevance. The other direction is far more dangerous and far more rare. The intelligent man uses solitude to refine perception. Rather than feed ego, he studies human behavior without hatred. He observes social dynamics without needing to dominate them. He begins to understand that most people are not shallow by choice. They are constrained by fear, habit, and survival. Machiavelli never hated humanity. He simply refused to romanticize it. This distinction matters. The man who romanticizes people becomes naive. The man who hates them becomes blind. The man who understands them becomes effective. At this stage, the intelligent man begins to see why friendship failed him before. Not because people were unworthy, but because the context was wrong. He was seeking depth in places designed for comfort. He was offering honesty where reassurance was the currency. He was playing a different game on the same board and wondering why the rules kept punishing him. Machiavelli would say the board determines the game, not the player. This realization changes how the intelligent man moves through the world. He no longer expects most people to meet him intellectually or emotionally. That expectation dissolves, and with it dissolves the constant disappointment that poisoned earlier interactions. He becomes lighter, not heavier, quieter, not colder. he learns that withholding depth is not betrayal of self, but conservation of energy. Reaching this point requires enduring years of apparent social failure, years where the intelligent man questions whether something is wrong with him, years where he watches less capable men thrive socially while he remains on the periphery. This comparison is poison. Machiavelli warned against comparing outcomes without comparing strategies. The socially successful man often pays a price. The intelligent man is unwilling to pay. He trades depth for acceptance, long-term coherence for short-term belonging.